It's time!
All right, welcome back to the Reverse Mush podcast. Harry Mack here as always with my co-host Ross. Very special guest this week, Arias Garcia, Matchmaker, CFFC. Arias, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This is cool for us. We've never had the pleasure of speaking with any matchmakers yet, so this should be interesting. We're pumped for it.
Yeah, I usually don't do these often, but when you guys called me out on Instagram, I said, let's do it.
Yeah. I'm learning that if you get somebody on the line on social media, you got to take your shot. You never know these things.
Yeah. You called me out and I answered. So.
Hey, well, you're here and we appreciate it.
No problem.
Exactly. I guess we should start there. So we're blocked by CFFC on Instagram.
Yeah. So Instagram, our Instagram page, you can't piss it off. If you piss it off, it's kind of like a death sentence. If you piss whoever does that, whoever handles our Instagram, they're very protective of Cage Fury. So, if you said something and they didn't like it, it's like, you're axed. But
it's a short trigger.
I think I follow you guys, or I'll follow you guys, and I think I've answered you guys. So,
Exactly. We got you at least, and we'll take what we can get. Soon we'll get unblocked eventually. It's a path. It's the path.
Don't take it. I want to say this. Don't take offense to it. I think the page blocks a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Harry might have poked a couple too many times. So you know what? We could probably accept the fact that the blocking it might have been all right. I mean,
it happens. I mean, listen, we know what we did. We had James Gonzalez on. He's a friend of the program, Sarah Longo athlete, former CFFC champion, and he wasn't thrilled with you guys at the time with the promotion, with how his situation was handled after the Sabatini fight, and we said, yeah, fuck it, let's have some fun with it. And I guess the page didn't appreciate that. So that's fair. But you know what? We have you on. We'd love to get your side of the story. It's only fair.
Yeah, so I will say this about James Gonzalez. Great guy, tough as they come, comes from a great school. So it's the weird timing for this podcast. Not weird, but in 2 days, it'll be 10 years since I've matched to make my first show. CFFC.
Congratulations.
6.
Yeah, congrats.
So CFFC 6 took place February 4th, 2011. So 2021, 10 years. What I've learned in 10 years of MMA and done over 80-some events, you're not going to please everybody. So I think the main thing that happened between James and Cage Fury at the peak was miscommunication. And I will leave it at that. James was handled by a guy that I like very much. I don't know if you guys know of him, but Shu Harada. I've known Shu Harada over probably close to almost 20 years now. And Shu is a guy you'll see on UFC translating a lot of the Japanese clients. So I got connected through James through Shu. And Shu and I have talked long and hard. But because listen, I really like James, and he texted me about a week before Pat Sabatini's opponent fell out and said, Arias, if you need somebody, whoever falls out on this card between 45, 55, 35, call me. I love that about James. I'm going back to the Pat Sabatini fight. The guy fell through. His opponent got injured, and I'm 43. My memory worked. I'm 42. I'm not 43 yet. my memory said, wait a minute, who texted me about a fight? And James texted me, so I went right to Shu, his manager. And I will say this about Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini is one of the toughest guys on a regional level to find a fight for. I'd be lucky to find him an opponent 8 weeks in advance for a full camp. And to his credit, James took it, without hesitation. It was just, the money, the when, the where, the why, and we got it done that day. And I think before Pat's fight, James did fight for us, and he fought at 35, and he told me, listen, I want to fight for the 35 belt. And I said, fine, that's it. Of course, going into that fight, anything can happen in MMA, and I know how dangerous James is. I followed his career through the other regional promotion he's fought. He's always dangerous. And if you look at my resume, or you look at Cage Fury's resume, we really don't try to give people easy fights. We think if you're going to be successful in the UFC, you got to fight tough people early. So we put the fight together. You know, he does this amazing submission, amazing. You know, got over 3 million views on ESPN or whatever. It was just crazy. It was
we were lucky enough to be there. We were losing our minds.
First row for it.
Yeah, I shared it whenever I could. And then James told us about his desire to fight at 135. So a 135 belt was kind of in limbo, because we had, you know, the 135 belt was up, but I've had terrible luck with that weight class. You know, I think Alexander Keshtov lost to a guy who missed weight, so the title was still up for grabs. So we said, so basically, this is where I say the miscommunication come through, because when I talk to a fighter and a fighter tells me they have a manager, I go through that manager, you know? So I talked to Shu and I said, Shu, if James doesn't want to fight at 145 anymore, we got to open that belt back up again. You know, I don't want to hold my 135 division hostage if, you know, I have people that want to fight. You know, luckily, you know, you saw the horrific injury, but Pat, I think, just dislocated his elbow. There was no, like, he was back in the gym 3 weeks later. And
He's
of
a tough
course,
son of a bitch.
He is. And of course, you know, he wanted the rematch. So I offered the rematch to James, and I understand why they didn't want it. Listen, when you beat someone of Pat's caliber and in that fashion, you can only do worse the second time.
Right.
You can only do worse. So
you don't stand to gain a ton.
Right. And I understood that. So we offered James a fight with Jared Scoggins in Memphis. James was worried about the quarantine from, you know, going to Memphis and coming back to New York. So we gave Jared Scoggins the fight. Jared Scoggins wins the 35-pound championship, and Bellator calls him a couple of days later. And that's history. And then this fight, he fights Levi Moles. And Levi's a, you know, from what I hear, a great 135er out of Texas, I believe, and he's managed by Iridium. You know, a lot of their fighters go to the UFC, and of course, you know, he misses weight. And at Cage Fury, we don't pressure anybody to take the fight. James, you know, I gave him credit for taking a fight. He took the fight. Guy missed weight, and James accepted the fight with the penalty of I think there was a financial penalty the commission put on him, and the fight went ahead. It sucked. Levi was unprofessional. I haven't brought him back, and they've been asking me. You know, I think James won the first round, and I think Levi got, you know, the better of him in the next couple.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then basically, you know, we do the year-end awards So, and I have no control over who votes and who does this, who does that. James was nominated for the submission of Pat Sabatini, and James feels slighted that we didn't promote him well, and we didn't do this, we didn't do that. I understand it. He's frustrated, but it's like, I don't know if you guys watch. Do you guys watch the NFL?
Yeah,
of course.
All right, so you guys remember recently Nickelodeon did an NFC championship game?
Yep.
And they voted for like the most valuable player.
Yeah, who won that again?
A big joke.
I forget who won that again.
Yeah,
Trubisky.
Right.
So right.
Trubisky has a terrible game.
It turned into a big troll.
Right, but the fans vote him. And what did Nickelodeon do? They still awarded him the MVP.
Right.
So if whoever has Jose Perez, who I think won the award, if he has all these fans and all these people vote, I can't stop that.
Yeah, we tried our best to get James that award. I think if you if you stalled the submission, it's hard. I mean, I guess there's great submissions all over the board, but it's hard to look at that and not think submission of the year. But that's not the people that are necessarily voting, and
Right.
you can't
It's all
take too
about
much.
fan base and
Exactly.
Right.
your
And
own
listen, it's
personal
like,
stuff.
and it's like, you guys know, you guys have your podcast, you guys are on Instagram. It's about that interaction with fans.
Mhm.
So in ways to get fans interacted, they vote. And and that's how it is. Listen, at the end of the day, I love James. James was a great fighter. I didn't want to release him. He requested it. I wrote him the letter that he shared on Instagram. Someone made fun of my grammar. I thought my grammar was on point. But I put as per your request because James asked for the release. So I wish him nothing but the best in his career. He pulled off a hell of an upset, and he beat one of the top 45ers in the world, and no one can take that from him. He was a CFFC champion, and no one can ever take that away from him. We're not always going to see eye to eye, but I respect what James did, and I respect his camp. I have a great relationship with Ray Longo. I have a great relationship with Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling was, as you guys probably know, was one of our champions back. One of James's teammates, Fumi, is fighting for our 125 title.
We talked to Fumi yesterday.
Yeah. So he's fighting for our title. So it's, again, I would love to see James again, shake his hand and just talk it out, and just, because like I said, I think a lot of this stuff got miscommunicated, because when James says we stripped him of the 45 title. I talked to Shu and I said, Shu, Pat wants the rematch. If James doesn't want to, then let's let him relinquish the 145 title, and he can fight for the 35 title. And that's what we said in the press release. And between Shu and James, I think there was a miscommunication.
Yeah, something went off, and
it gets lost in translation.
It happens.
Yeah.
But I think everything you said was very, very well said.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate your candor and the honesty.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, at the end of the day, it's a tough business. It's a cutthroat business, and there's no way that every single person is going to be happy at the end of the day. But
Right.
like you said, James wanted the release. You gave him the release. He can go on his way. Everyone's happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and if James went on to Bellator, ONE FC, UFC, and won, I'd be cheering him on.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I guess, and I know we went down the James rabbit hole early there, but just to backtrack here a little bit. I mean, how did you get into matchmaking?
So it was kind of weird. So my dad, like I said, I'm older, I'm 42. My dad rented the first UFC, and then it was on from there. I honestly never trained. Found out very quickly that I wasn't good at jiu-jitsu and couldn't remember what Daniel Gracie would tell me 2 seconds earlier. So I was like, okay, can't do that. So I've always been a fan. Love sports. I'm a 4-for-4 guy. Live in South Jersey, but I root for all the
let's go
the Philly teams.
That's my guy.
But yeah, just been a fan of it. I think back in the early 2000s, I was writing for a newspaper out here while I was going to college, and there was a show called MFC Euphoria, I believe, with Miguel Iterati was the promoter, and he was bringing people. I'm talking old school. I'm talking like Eve Edwards, Yamkeem Hansen, Eddie Alvarez to Atlantic City, and I kind of just followed him around until he gave me a job writing for Abu Dhabi, then wrote for Sherdog. And then, got close with a little bit with Felix Martinez, who was the original owner of Cage Fury. When Kimbo fought Ray Mercer, they asked me to be a judge because the fight was not sanctioned by the commission. So I was a judge.
That's cool.
Thank God it didn't go to a decision. And then, got out of the game for a little bit. Felix hit me up in 2010, say they were going to have a meeting. They wanted to introduce me to Rob Haydack. The current owner of Cage Fury. I met Rob in 2010, and really credit him to where Cage Fury's at now. I credit him for what I've learned. I think I used to say he's one of the smartest guys in regional MMA, but he's really one of the smartest guys in MMA, period. I've learned really so much from him, and the vision he's had for Cage Fury ever since he took over at CFFC 6. That was my first matchmake show with CFFC 6. He took a chance with me, and now we're on CFFC 92. So 86 shows later. Yeah. So and that's primarily be it. When they approached me for the meeting, I said, I've done a lot. I was a gopher for for Miguel, driving a fighter from the airport to medicals to the commission. And I said, if I got a chance, I'd like to matchmake. And Rob Haydack trusted me, and it's history ever since.
Nah, that's awesome. Crazy that you've been there from basically the start.
Yeah.
So you just said 86 events over your tenure with the CFFC you've made matches for. If you had to pick one event that was maybe your favorite, or that really sticks out to you, can you do it? Is there one?
Yeah, I can. And again, I'm getting old. But it had to be the first show that Dana White came to. Dana White came to a show looking for a fighter. It's the show that he selected Jared Gordon for. And guys, I'm gonna tell you one thing: when you put a fight card together, you put a fight card. So back pre-pandemic, we put on 13 fights. So we wanted to put on 13 fights. So when you put on 13 fights, you have to think 2 are going to fall off. Either a guy's going to have personal issues, he's going to get he got injured, he's going to break up with his girlfriend, he can't fight. Thankfully, New Jersey has one of the strictest licensing requirements, and medicals, a guy, we can catch something where a guy might have an issue that he needs to get corrected before he can fight. So I believe we tried to do 13 fights for that. I believe we got around 13. I got to look at it off the top of my head, but every fight on that card, for the most part, stayed on. It was a really great night of fights. Jared Gordon beat, I want to say, Bill Algeo by decision.
Couple former UFC guys, or future UFC guys.
Former UFC guys. Sean Shorty Rock Santella submitted I think Kevin Gray. Nick Pace came back, and I think he defeated he defeated Ahmet Kayretley. And it was just, and also who followed on that, Joe Selecki, who is now a jiu-jitsu wizard who's in the UFC. So everything that could have went right with that card went right. It was just, we were real fortunate for that event. The fights were great, and I couldn't ask for a better event. And with having Dana White there, and Dana White selecting Jared, and what, his story, he's a great kid. And for him to get selected, it was just a real awesome night.
And I guess just going off the looking for a fight, when are we going to get them back in the CFFC? I know they're filming.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
Hopefully for that Pumi card.
Yeah. We did a show in he was at a show in San Diego. Shorty Rock went out there. I think he lost to Morales, and they picked Morales. And there's a couple. Christian Aguilera, who's now in the UFC, was on that card. A couple other guys that I might be missing. Matt, oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name. He went to the UFC. But yeah, I would love to have Dana White there. It just adds a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Because the most powerful guy in MMA. Well, besides Rob Haydack is there.
Of course.
So, yeah, it was just a perfect night, and I can't wait for them to come back. We get texts all the time from the people at UFC Fight Pass. I believe that was probably one of my highlights last year, was one of our fight shows during the pandemic. One of the higher ups in UFC Fight Pass texted Rob, and he shared it with me, and he was like, that was the best Fight Pass show of the year. So,
yeah, a couple of the cards have been,
phenomenal.
Well, most of the cards have been phenomenal, but there's been a couple that it's just constant action and either a great finish or a hard-fought decision. So tip of the cap to you.
Yeah, but it feels like every fight in CFFC is competitive. There's no fights where it feels like it's completely one-sided, and one guy doesn't belong in the cage with another, where you kind of see in other promotions.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and it's like, we're not. Like I said, our goal is to get fighters ready for the next level. it seems like you guys have seen us on Fight Pass. The production is awesome. We do post-fight interviews. We were doing this before UFC Fight Pass. We tried to make the fighters feel, Burt Watson used to be our guy to talk to the fighters to bring them out. So we try to prepare them. And again, my motto is, no easy fights. If you want to get to the next level, you got to take tough fights. And I think that's what you're seeing is a lot of these professionals that are either accurate with their striking or submission, that it's going to be, some of these are going to be 2 top quality guys, and it might be a quick finish, but I think our next 2 cards in March are going to be fantastic. Pumi, real excited about Pumi. His debut was really, really impressive. And we don't usually give title shots to fighters that are only 2-0, but he just really impressed Rob and I, and everyone talks about him. Aljamain has been blowing me up for a year. I won't say years, but he's blown up for a while about him. So when you have fighters like Aljamain, Mirab, and all these other guys tell you that, hey, you got to get this guy, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, we had the pleasure of interviewing Ray Longo a couple of months ago, and when we asked, who are some guys in the gym that people might not know about, but that, guys that are ready to take that next step, and, UFC caliber guys, and one of the first names out of his mouth, Pumi Nakuda. So we're going to be in the building for that fight. We're real excited for that one. I'm sure you'll hear us. We're very loud and obnoxious.
You guys are supposed to be unbiased. You guys are journalists. Be unbiased.
No. That's the beauty of what we do.
We're openly not. Right. We're openly biased.
We're like bloggers. We're like the new. We're just fans who are covering the sport as fans. That's what we're doing. We're not trying to be objective or journalists. We want our pals to win, and we want to have a good time. That's what we want.
Feel better. Oh, I see a little bit. Sorry, that's my youngest.
No problem.
No problem. But yeah, we're open about being shills, so nobody could accuse us of being hacks or shills or anything. We don't pretend not to be.
Maybe that's why you got banned.
It's exactly why.
It probably is.
You guys should wear that as a badge of honor.
We were at the Gonzalez Moles fight, and I was yelling at Rob to unblock me the whole time. Anytime he walked past. We were sitting right next to Lenny Rufati's family, right behind the judges' table. So we got plenty of time.
So listen, you got to wear a shirt that says "Rob unblock me," and I'll give you a picture with him.
Say no more. I will be there on March 11th with a Rob unblock me shirt.
Awesome.
I'll be there next to him, probably just saying like, "What's up, go Pumi."
Yes, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit. I mean, some of the names that you've gotten to make fights for between, Aljo, Marab, Shane Burgos, Felder, Chikagian, Sadiq Youssef. I mean, these are absolute killers in the UFC. So is it almost like personally vindicating to, kind of see all of these fighters have that success at the next level?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean when I say no easy fights. And again, I just want to reiterate this, I didn't get them to the UFC. Cage Fury didn't get them to the UFC. The training that they put in, the time that they sacrificed away from their families, they got themselves into the UFC. Cage Fury just provided a platform that they could maybe have some of the most exposure in the country. And it doesn't, it's great to have great gyms like Sarah Longo, Daniel Gracie in Philly, John Marquez, EEFC, Nick Catone. It doesn't have to have these really good camps. Will Martinez in Philly. It's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's like we have a great MMA pool out here in the Northeast, and I do see some other fighters. No names, don't ask, but I do see some other fighters in other regional promotions that have taken a less tough route to either become 7-0, 8-0, 9-0. And in the first fight in either Contender or the UFC, they're getting handled. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference between us is that, like you said, we've had Felder, Aljamain, a laundry list of tough fighters. Not in the UFC, still Bellator. Ricky Bendejas, is killing it over here. Ang Long is killing it over at ONE FC. So yeah, it really. It's like weird. It's like I'm their father almost a little bit. Proud. And I was telling a buddy of mine this past week, he said, he said, "What was your favorite moment?" Because I told him about the 10 years coming up, that we were going to be celebrating 10 years of Cage Fury since Rob and I came on. And he said, what is your favorite moment? And I said, my favorite moment didn't occur in a cage, didn't occur in a ring. It was a guy that I signed named Jonathan Webb. Signed him straight for the amateurs. I believe fought all of his fights for us, got called to the UFC, went 0-2 in the UFC, but they kind of got robbed in Australia. But Rob had called me one day and said, "Hey, John got the call." And I was like, "Oh man, that's fucking awesome." He's like, and then Rob was like, "Sorry for cursing."
That's more than welcome here.
So Rob was like, "Hey man, come over. We're going to tell him." And so I'm sitting there with Rob. Jonathan comes over, and his wife, Alex, comes over, and Rob tells him right there, "You're in the UFC." And that moment is probably one of my highlights of, the 10 years that I've been doing this is being there when John got called. And I'm just going to tell you guys that another animal that you guys got to be, I think he fights March 6th, I believe, but Sean Brady is an animal. You guys got to watch him. I'm telling you,
we're working on talking to him. We're trying.
Yeah,
we're trying. But yeah, that Jake Matthews fight is going to be fun.
Yeah, Sean is an absolute animal, and he's going to when we talk next year, guys. When you say Felder, Aljo, he's going to be one of them names that you're going to mention with one of the CFFC greats.
He's an absolute monster. And even Felder said in his last fight on the broadcast, he's like, "I've never felt a squeeze like this, guys."
Yeah.
He said it's something else. So yeah, we're trying to get him on. But and like you said, you're a 4-for-4 guy, Harry, for your New York spoiled ass. That's been 4 sports, 4 teams, Philadelphia. So it's got to be even more. I mean,
I'm not
indication.
Spoiled. I like the shitty New York.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I mean, just having guys that from your area, even that you've been a part of watching them grow through it, it's got to add a little extra.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like I said, I known John since the amateurs. I signed Paul Felder to his first pro fight contract. So it's just been a blessing, and it's like weird because when these guys fight in the UFC, I get so nervous. When they win, I jump up and I scream, and when they lose, it hurts, and it's like, damn, it really does, because you want them to do well, not because that's a Cage Fury guy, but just because when you do this for as long as I have 10 years, you build relationships. I still text Jared Gordon, and I text every once in a while to see how he's doing. So you have friendships over the last 10 years. You get a couple of haters, maybe a lot of haters.
It's worth it.
But for the most part, MMA really is a bunch of great people, and the relationships I've made, I wouldn't trade them for anything.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, we can definitely, relate to that. Obviously, we haven't been at this as long as you.
To a smaller extent.
Yeah, we talk to fighters. You make friends, and there is no comparing that feeling of like when someone you consider a friend and you've spoken to, and as like a human being and not just as a fighter is in that cage taking shots. I mean, you want to talk about empathy? It feels like you feel every body shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can only imagine. When you've had even the slightest hand in their career and them getting to that point.
Right.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of speaking to, I guess Harry's probably going to be pissed that I bring it up, but we got to interview Impa Kasaganai, and then he ate that Joaquin Buckley kick, and that was brutal.
That was tough.
And actually, I feel bad for Impa, because I almost signed him, because he was what we call like a regional beast. Like no one would fight him on a regional level because he was killing people. And I've shared texts with Impa before he got signed to the UFC, and for something to happen to like that to anybody, but for someone that you might have chatted with, that was tough. So
and also just like the nicest guy in the world. Yeah, he is such a sweetheart.
He is. And you guys gave him the kiss of death.
Yeah, that's
pretty much.
The podcast is called the Reverse Mush Podcast, but
right.
it started off with a lot of us mushing.
Listen, if I have guys start pulling out because of injuries, I'm never coming up.
I think
we went through a stretch where our pals went like 0 for 3, 0 for 4, but we're back on
we're on
the
a
right
win
track
streak now. Yeah, we're
on a win streak now, so it's okay.
Not a win streak, but we got to win.
Yeah.
For
So
lost.
I also wanted to ask, Paul Felder actually kind of launched a second career in broadcasting and in media, and that kind of started with CFFC. So is that something that you guys kind of, pay attention to, and you're kind of trying to build up like like CM Punk right now or stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's probably the second question I get asked a lot. Is the first question I get asked a lot is, hey, when can I fight? The second question is, hey, when can I do commentary? When can I be ring announcer? So yeah, Paul, depends on how much you know of Paul's background. Went to college for I believe theater, was an actor.
He's got the chops for it.
Great mic skills. He was our commentator for a while. Then I believe Sucker Punch got him an audition with the UFC doing their commentary, and it took off. I think I'm being super biased here, but I love John Morgan and CM Punk. I think they're the best duo out there right now on UFC Fight Pass.
Jessie Penne does a great job too when she's tagged in.
Absolutely, and we're not taking any applications or auditions right now. We got our two guys.
Let us know if you are.
What I love to see happen, and I can't, oh my God, but I would love to see Aljo win the title March 6th.
Yeah.
He corners Pumi, brings the belt, and we, have him as the third man in the booth. So Aljo, if you're listening to me, get that belt and come back home.
We'll make sure. We'll make sure he hears it. Well, we'll do our best.
we'll pass the message along.
But yeah, I mean, we're pumped for that fight as well. We were waiting a while. So I guess that's actually kind of leads into a different question. So obviously that fight took some time to get booked, and there was who knows what Dana's qualms were, whatever the issue was with getting Jan versus Aljo. I guess going into a big fight like that for you, what are the most important things you're looking for when making the match, and what are some things that you you always have to account for?
So, it's been pretty easy, during the pandemic. And what I mean by that is, regional promotion, we thrive off of ticket sales. But during the pandemic, we've either been at a situation where it's 25% capacity or no fans. So I hadn't had to rely on any ticket sellers. So I'm able to branch out more. The guy that beat Santo was from California. So going back to your question, I try to bring the best talent I can to Cage Fury, the best unsigned talent. And if you've seen our cards vary. Our top guys, our guys at the top of the card are usually the guys that have the most fights fighting for the title. And the guys at the bottom of the card are usually our up and comers that are 1-0, 2-0, 0-0, or but for me, I want to make sure, first of all, they're from a reputable camp, a reputable manager. Obviously, if they can handle the mic, promote themselves, that's great. But all it comes down to is just making good fights. If I think one guy's a monster, listen, I try to put him against another monster. And most of the times it's a yes. Some of the times it's like, he's not ready for that fight, but after this fight he will, and I can respect that. I don't want to say this without being disrespectful, but Rob and I were talking today, and it's like the bar has been kind of lowered a little bit. And again, I don't mean that by any disrespect, but if you can watch a show like the Contender Series, Dana's picking on guys that are 4-0, 5-0, and if you have a good showing there, you can make it to the UFC.
Right.
So I just look for a guy that can fight, and I trust managers. I trust our camps, and they'll tell me, like I remember Brian Hamper, Sucker Punch, told me that Sadiq Youssef fought one time for us, and he's like, Sadiq is going to be great. I trust when John Marquez, Daniel Gracie, Jonathan, Rob say Sean Brady is going to be the next, could be one of the top 170 pounders in the world. So again, I try to make the best fight. There's been some fights where a guy will try. I love this. I love when a fighter tries to become a matchmaker and they'll say, Arias, I'll fight this guy. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to get that person killed. So yeah, it's just trying to make the best fight, possible for the fans, and trying to get two records that are comparable, and records don't always tell the story, as you guys know. Yeah, but you try to make the best fight, and sometimes you guys seen it, probably in Cage Fury, probably in the UFC. You see two guys with really good records, and it's a great fight, and you'll see two guys with really good records, and you're like, oh my God, can this fight be over? It's a third round. I mean, Jesus. I mean, so, but you just want the best fight you can, and on paper it looks great, and hopefully it transition to the cage.
Absolutely. And I guess even just like you said in there, brought up the UFC. I mean, I don't know how to, obviously I don't want you to talk negatively on anyone, but when you look at like some things the UFC does where they'll book a fight that maybe even people like Harry and I are looking and they're like, I don't know if this guy should have gotten this fight, but they go off the name. I mean, what are your thoughts on name value in the sport, I guess?
Well, it's hard for me to talk negative about a company that's done great for our industry. But yeah, there's some fights that I've seen put together and I scratch my head. But I think, I'm not in those matchmaker meetings with Dana, Mick, Sean, where, they always, like, we have a plan. We have a plan for some of our fighters where, if fighter A beats fighter B, then that fighter can fight for the title or the number one contender. So I'm pretty sure they're thinking the same thing. And just like we have signed fighters to multi-fight deals, they have signed fighters to multi-fight deals too. And you don't want a guy, sometimes you don't want a killer fighting a killer too early, and you might want them to fight, later on for the title. But again, you're not going to make everyone happy. They're not going to make you guys happy. They're not going to make me happy. I sometimes scratch my head, at some of the matchups, but they have a meaning to the end, and they've really done great for themselves. And
absolutely,
with our partnership with UFC Fight Pass, I think they're awesome. And if they put a fight on, it's because they have something in the works later down for either one of those fighters, whoever's victorious.
For sure, absolutely. I guess if you were, if Dana called you tomorrow and said, "What would you do with the lightweight division right now?" What would you tell him? Between the you got Chandler now in the mix. Charlie's earned his shot. Gaethje lost to Habib. Yeah, Dustin wants the belt.
Yeah, this one's easy for me. How can you deny Chandler a title shot? I think he said something on. I think I saw it on Twitter, Instagram, but he basically told Dustin, like, it took you 5 rounds to put this guy away, and he won by decision. He goes, I knocked him out within a minute 30. It looks
not a bad point.
Yeah, and it looks like Dustin might be kind of on like a bigger than a belt type thing now, where he's either going to do a trilogy fight with Conor or fight the Diaz brothers. If I'm Dana, you can always call me. If I'm Dana, I'm calling Michael Chandler and I'm calling Charles Oliveira, and I'm booking that fight right now. I think that's a great fight. And hopefully if if that fight and one of them wins spectacular, you get Khabib back. I don't think Chandler beats Khabib, but I do like the problems.
It would be a fun fight.
Yeah. I'm not saying he beat him, but that'd be the fight to make to me. But
yeah, I think Chandler would probably have the best wrestling of any opponent Khabib has ever faced.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the fight with, you hate to say a fighter's beatable, and how can you say a fighter is beatable when he hasn't lost? But I look back to that Ally Quinta fight, and Al gave Khabib a little bit of problem. So
he did.
Yeah, I would love to see him versus Chandler. It'd be a great fight.
That would certainly be a lot of fun. So I guess, but before we let you go, you've been very generous with your time here, and we appreciate that. Is there any one fighter whose success just kind of means a little bit more to you on a personal level? Maybe someone you kind of, like stuck the neck out for at some point early in their career?
It's hard just to narrow it down to one fighter. I wish all the guys that came through Cage Fury the success in the world. I can't put it on one fighter. And I reiterate, everything I said about James Gonzalez. If he goes on to the UFC, I'm going to be cheering for him. If he loses, it's going to hurt because he's one of us. He's when I say one of us, he fought for Cage Fury, and he was our champion. So no, not one fighter, but whenever a Cage Fury vet steps in there, I kind of have my heart on my sleeve, and I openly root for him. I'll tell you this though, one of the toughest fights I probably had to watch was Jimmy Rivera and Aljamain, because that fight was supposed to happen in Cage Fury. It never did, and I didn't want them guys to fight each other unless it was for a title. And I believe Aljamain won by decision, and that's that. But I root for all my guys. There's some guys that I'm closer to, and those guys that I'm closer to, they know about it. I mean, it's a human relationship, and some guys I'm not closer to, but I root for them. They know. But yeah, Cage Fury veterans, you're one of us, and we're always root you on.
There you go. It's a good political answer. You can't be getting a bunch of upset texts from former fighters. Can't have that. All right.
And I guess before one last one, just
last question,
because he's a Philly sports guy here.
Yeah, I got the Flyers and Sixers on right now.
That's what I'm saying. I might have the Sixers going in the background here. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But I gotta ask you, what do you think we do you trade Carson? What do we do here?
So this is why you can't trade Carson. And I'm not a Carson guy.
Okay.
But if you just saw what happened with Jared Goff got traded to the Detroit Lions.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave up Jared Goff and I think 2 first-round draft picks.
It was a haul.
And a third rounder for a guy that's probably obviously at the end of his career.
Mm.
And I have my friends telling me, if you trade Carson, you're going to get a first rounder. I'm like, no, you're not.
That's what the Eagles think.
Yeah. Hasn't that contract not even kicked in yet also?
Correct.
Yeah,
and that's why.
Oof.
And that's why the Rams had to give the Detroit Lions 2 first-round draft picks because they had to get rid of that monster contract.
And Wentz is worse.
Yeah,
his contract.
I'm rooting for Andy Reid though this weekend.
Yeah, I always got to root for Big Red. If the Eagles aren't in it, it's Big Red season. But no, man, I really, really do appreciate this. It was a lot of fun talking to you. So hopefully we can bump into you March 11th, and we'll say what's good. And hopefully Harry's wearing a Unblock Me shirt.
I'll have my Unblock Me shirt on.
Yeah, wear that. We'll get a picture with Robin. We'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thank you for breaking bread with us, Arias.
Yeah, no
Thanks
problem,
so
guys. Anytime. And hey, try to be nicer to us on Instagram now that we did this, okay?
I think it's all water under the bridge now.
Fair. We can put it behind us if you can.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. We appreciate it.
Be good, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Hey, 9mm, my brothers, my keeper was serving that ether before I did features. My mama see that she know how to greet me, she know how to keep me, she better not get greedy. I hit the lottery. Tell me your thoughts and you better not lie to me. Slugging the collar. Ain't I'm a product of my new community, ain't I'm a product. Twitching that gas, we blowing up fast, we put on that mask and come on that cash. Yeah. Check, I got a motor.